Women don't lose interest just for the sake of it. It is no coincidence, it's not a mystery. It is not, as many naive men believe, the fault of fate, chance, or that she changed. The truth is different. It's raw. But if you understand it, you can master the game that others barely survive. Listen to me carefully, because this is not a love story. It's a story of power. Since ancient times, men who understand how the female will operate have been the ones who decide when a relationship begins and ends. The others simply react. They implore. They wonder what they did wrong. Meanwhile, she is already writing her new chapter with another man, one who may not be more handsome or richer, but who knew how to play differently. And you're going to learn that now. When a woman loses interest, she almost never announces it. He doesn't make a scene. It leaves no obvious clues. It just begins to retreat subtly. Fewer messages, less enthusiasm, less physical contact. It is as if a fog began to envelop everything that was once fire. And the average man, he gets scared. Increase the messages. He asks insecure questions. It becomes more accommodating. And in doing so, he hastens his own end. She doesn't say it, but she thinks about it. He's not the same anymore. Not because you have changed physically, but because your position has been compromised. And why does this happen? Because from the first moment, many women are not observing if they like you. They are observing if you know how to like yourself. The difference is abysmal, and if you don't grasp that difference, you'll get stuck in a constant cycle of conquest and loss. Listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you, because Cesare Borgia knew this, and Alexander VI understood it. A woman proves your value not when everything is going well, but when she doubts you. It is in those moments of coldness, of distance, of silence, where men reveal whether or not they have inner power. I don't mean shouting, imposing, complaining. I mean real power. The ability not to stagger when the world stops applauding you. Most can't handle that. Most fall into the emotional trap that she sets up without saying a word. They despair, lose their center, and become the shadow of what they were in the conquest phase. And I'll tell you something. Women hate a man who betrays himself for fear of losing them. It is repulsive to them. But there is one kind of man, rare, scarce but magnetic, who reacts differently. And that man is the one she cannot forget, it cannot replace. Because that man, when he feels that something is getting cold, it does not run behind. Observed, notes, hold on. And if he deems it necessary, he withdraws. And this is where the real power begins, because this man does not retire as a cheap tactic. It is not a move to make her react. He is not acting out of necessity. He withdraws because he understands that his energy is not begging, because he knows that desire is not convinced with words but with presence, because he understands, as I understood in every palace strategy, that mystery and silence can be more lethal weapons than any argument. And when you become that kind of man, something changes, not only in her, in you. Because you stop waiting for affection and you start demanding respect. And I'm going to tell you something else, something that most men will never understand. When a woman feels that you don't need her, when she senses that you are willing to go on with your life without her and do it elegantly, something inside her is activated. It's as if your unconscious is screaming, I can't control it, I can't catch it. What if I miss this man who does not tremble before my silence? And right at that point, the desire begins to be reborn. But be careful. Not every man can do it. It is not enough to feign disinterest. It is not enough to play hard. Because if there is anxiety inside you, if there is insecurity, she will perceive it. Women don't listen to your words, they observe your reactions. If you get irritated by her distance, if you make passive-aggressive comments, if you try to provoke her to validate you. You're showing weakness, you are revealing your need, you are handing over power. I, Machiavelli, tell you bluntly, power is not given away. You win, it is maintained, and sometimes it recovers, but only when you understand that the real appeal is not in what you give her, but in what you can take away from him, your presence, your access, your validation. And here I want you to pause, reflect. How many times have you delivered too much? How many times have you gone out of your way to keep her attention, believing that it would make her love you more? Now I ask you, did it work? If you're watching this video, you already know the answer. And now I want you to promise yourself something, that you will not give away your essence again to buy affection, that you're not going to beg emotionally for attention, that you're going to build yourself inside in such a way that if she leaves, you don't collapse, you rise. That is the beginning of male rebirth, and it doesn't end there, because there is another level, one where you not only stop chasing, but you start being persecuted, and not because you play with them, but because you master the art of provoking unnecessarily. To be without depending, to connect without tying you down, but we'll talk about that later. What's truly fascinating is that most men don't understand that when a woman starts to lose interest, she's actually looking for a reason to admire you, but it won't if you kneel. He will do it when you show that your world does not revolve around his mood. This is something that wise princes learned by observing the movements of the court. Attention, attraction, desire, they are all unstable resources. They come and go, but the perception of power remains. And power, when it is genuine, awakens obedience in even the most indomitable hearts. When a woman starts to disconnect emotionally, many men act as if they have to prove that they are enough. They strive to explain themselves, to justify, to ask what they did wrong. But that only serves one thing, that she confirms her suspicion, that you depend on its validation. And when that happens, you're no longer an inspirational figure. You're an emotional child trapped in a man's body. The kind of man who truly arouses obsession does not need validation. He knows he's valuable. Her confidence is not born of a woman's flattery. It is born of his conduct, of its principles, of his ability to withdraw without fear when he is not respected. And I'll tell you a secret. In the game of seduction, well-dosed indifference is more powerful than any praise. But beware. I said well-dosed. Because hollow indifference, that which is born of fear or resentment, can be smelled for miles. It is not power, it is reaction. It is a desperate attempt to recover something that already feels lost. True strategic indifference is elegant, subtle. It manifests itself in your actions, not in your words. You go on with your life, with or without it. You don't complain, you don't ask, you don't accuse, you don't beg. And that attitude arouses curiosity, because women are used to men collapsing when they move away. When you don't, you break their internal narrative. They create stories to justify your calm. They imagine you with someone else. They idealize you. They begin to wonder if perhaps you are more valuable than they thought. But you don't do anything to bring that about. You simply exist with dignity. And that is one of the highest forms of seduction. Not to seek, but to provoke them to seek you. The vast majority of men cannot access this level because their anxiety is stronger than their self-control. But you, if you are here listening to me, it is because you intuit that there is another way of being in the world. A more powerful form, quieter, more strategic. And let me take you one step further. When a woman loses interest, it's not necessarily the end. Sometimes it's a test, other times it's an opportunity. Because in that emptiness that she creates by withdrawing, you can rebuild your frame, you can correct your position, you can reinstall the respect that you may have started to lose when you became too available, too predictable, too needy. The intelligent man does not panic. It does not try to return to the before. It does not seek to reactivate the same pattern, create a new one that is born from its center, not from its lack. And that requires something that very few have: a deep understanding of oneself. In my writings, I have always emphasized that he who dominates his passions dominates others. This applies here, because we are not just talking about conquering a woman. We're talking about conquering your own character, to forge an internal structure so solid that it does not depend on external whims. And when you do that, you become a magnet, not because of your words, not because of your gifts, but by your presence. Because there's something in you that conveys, I can lose you and still be a king. That's the language that many women understand on an instinctive level. It doesn't matter how many books they read, how many podcasts they listen to, how many friends advise them. When they are in front of a man who belongs to himself, his soul recognizes him. Because it's weird, it's unusual, and the unusual arouses fascination. But now I want us to look at something else, something that many ignore: the role of mystery. Predictability is the poison of desire. When you become totally predictable, emotionally transparent, available 24/7, without limits, without space, she's not seduced. She feels trapped in an emotional rut. But when you keep a part of yourself that is not easily surrendered, when you have a rich, independent, focused inner world, she can't anticipate you. And where there is uncertainty, there is attraction. This doesn't mean you're cold, or that you manipulate. It means that you are not an open book from the first page, that you don't give everything in advance, that you do not make your attention a handout. Scarcity raises value. A woman knows that a man who knows and respects himself is not going to give himself emotionally at the first difficulty, nor is he going to fight to stay when he is not welcome. He's going to leave. It's going to focus. It will evolve. And if she wants to be in his life, she's going to have to earn it. That is the real turn of power. The moment where you stop being the one who waits to become the one who chooses. And believe me, when you embody that energy, it doesn't matter how many times you lose a woman's interest. You can always get it back, if you want to. But many times you won't even want to, because you will have discovered something better, your own value. Many men make a fatal mistake when they feel that the connection with a woman begins to fade. They believe that what she needs is more attention, more affection, more presence. But what they don't understand is that female desire is not reactivated with more presence, but with a strategic presence. It is not about being, it's about how you're doing. The woman does not get bored of the man who appears. He gets bored of the man who appears the same every day. That becomes flat, predictable, without layers, without internal tension. She gets bored with the man who has already been completely conquered by her, and that no longer represents any challenge. And this is where the key comes in. The challenge. Not the aggressive or superficial challenge, but that subtle energy that conveys a non-verbal message. You don't have me completely yet. I'm not that easy to possess. Female desire feeds on conquest, even within a relationship, even after having shared a bed, secrets, and time. If you become completely conquered, she will stop feeling that there is something to discover, and when there's nothing left to discover, nor is there anything to be desired. Such is human nature. Such is the politics of the soul. And what works in the palace also works in bed. The woman needs to feel like you could leave, but you choose to stay. Not because you don't have options, not because you're desperate, but because, with all your power, you decide to share your world. That's a powerful choice, and it's only powerful if you have real options. That is why the man who wishes to maintain a woman's interest must never leave his way, its mission, its growth, because that's what keeps it attractive. She can love you, yes, but what really ignites his soul is to admire you, and admiration is lost when you stop, when you rotate your axis to center it on it. When your passions, your ambitions, and your attention become small daily offerings placed at their feet, waiting for a smile, a caress, a validation, that's not love. That is submission, and submission never generated desire. You must understand something that leaders have always known. Your time is your most sacred resource. Your attention is your treasure. Don't give it away, manage it. Give it with intention, not necessity. If she perceives that you can disappear emotionally if there is no reciprocity, will respect you. And that respect can be more seductive than 1,000 romantic words. Now look at the men who don't understand this. What are you doing? They are behind. Insist. They ask, is everything okay? Is something wrong with you? Have I done anything wrong? And every time they do, they lose a layer of their masculine power, because they place their emotional center in her hands. And listen to me well. If you place your emotional center in someone else's hands, that person will sooner or later let you fall. Why? Because it is too much responsibility. Because desire cannot breathe in an atmosphere of need. Because you can't admire those who crawl. Machiavelli learned that power is not begged. It is built, it is projected. It settles in the air with the way you walk, with the way you speak, with the way you decide when to shut up and when to act. The same thing happens here. It is not a question of manipulation. It's about getting your axle back. To remember that you were not created to entertain other people's emotions, but to build internal empires that arouse natural admiration. And I'll tell you something even more important. Most men, in their ignorance, pursue women with adolescent energy, with anxiety, urgently, hungrily, but the man who arouses the real interest, it is one who is already satisfied, not emotionally dependent, not pleading. He is a man who does not pursue, he attracts. And do you know how it is attracted? With presence, with mystery, with direction, with depth. A woman is not obsessed with what she understands. He becomes obsessed with what he feels, but he cannot explain. And if you become predictable, explicit, emotionally transparent to the extreme, she no longer feels that confused attraction that keeps her awake at night. You must be an enigma, not an open manual. You must be a man of principles, not a man of reactions. She may be losing interest not because she doesn't love you anymore, but because she no longer feels the same energetic voltage she felt at the beginning. And that is not recovered with gifts or flowers or dinners. He recovers with internal power, with the man who disappears not to punish hers, but because he has such a complete life that he cannot stop it from pursuing what does not align. That is the turn that few dare to make, because it involves risk, it implies faith, it implies the possibility of losing it. But I'll ask you an uncomfortable question. Do you really want to keep someone who only wants you when you become a diminished version of yourself? Not me, and neither should you, because the man who respects himself, who knows himself, who values himself, he never trades his essence for affection. He would rather lose a woman than lose his emotional backbone. And when you embody that many times, she comes back. But if it doesn't matter, because you didn't play at keeping it. You played at not losing yourself, and there, my friend, your reign begins. And this is where everything is defined, not in the words you say to a woman, not in the gestures you use to impress her, but in the internal posture you hold when the wind changes, when she gets cold, when it seems to be moving away. That moment for most is the beginning of the end. But for you, it can be the birth of a new way of being in the world. Not as a slave to someone else's desire, but as a strategist of your own history. For what distinguishes an ordinary man from an unforgettable one is not how many times he has been loved, but how many times he has maintained his value even when he was not wanted. And that fire that doesn't go out when cold winds blow is what separates the emotionally free seducer from the emotionally chained supplicant. You're not here to learn how to retain women. You're here to learn how not to lose yourself in the process. When that becomes your axis, everything changes. The dynamics change, reactions change, and you, inevitably, begin to attract those who recognize your value without you having to show it off. That, my friend, is not seduction. That's power. And now I want to ask you something. If these words have ignited something within you, don't leave him in silence. This channel is a community of men who think differently, who no longer want to be governed by emotions they don't understand, that they are ready to dominate the rules of the game, not out of desperation, but from intelligence, strategy, and dignity. Leave me your comment. Share your experience. Have you experienced what we describe here? Have you lost yourself by chasing? Have you recovered your center? I want to read your story, because by sharing it, you inspire others. And if you know a man who needs to hear this, send it to him, now. Not tomorrow, not when it's too late, because every minute he spends acting as if his worth depends on a woman is a minute lost in exile from his own inner realm. Subscribe if you haven't already. Here we speak as few dare to speak. There is no emotional censorship or masks of political correctness here, just raw truth, strategy, and evolution. Turn on the bell, because the next video can be the difference between keeping repeating the same mistakes, or start writing a completely different story, where the protagonist is you, not your fears. And remember this, it's not that they lose interest, it's that you forgot what made it impossible for you to ignore. Recover it, and there will be no woman who does not feel it. See you in the next move. Because it's just beginning.